The Our Club Says No to DV project came from an idea quite some years ago. We wanted to support local clubs in an initiative where they go through some workshops and have more increased awareness of the issue of domestic violence for our community, and also support those clubs in spreading that messaging within their club, but also to have that ripple effect of the messaging getting out broader. The major supporter of the project is Mother Hubbard's Cupboard, which is a fantastic community organisation that supports victims, survivors of domestic violence, and also people that have issues around homelessness.
Mother Hubbard's Cupboard is a not-for-profit charity that's been around for 15 years. We keep our eyes and ears open for local projects. Well, I think it's always important to get information out there about domestic violence. It's a subject that a lot of people are very ignorant about. Lifting the awareness so that people will become more alert to what's happening. That then causes their own behaviour to change, and hopefully they can be alert to what other people are doing, the early signs of it.
Howdy everyone, I reckon we might make a start. We've got a pretty jam-packed 2 hours tonight, so I'm really stoked to be here, and I really appreciate you all taking the time out to come tonight. We all have busy lives and things to do, family, friends, commitments, so yeah, I really appreciate you all being here.
My name's Trent Larkman. I'm a family violence and gender equality educator. Essentially, I developed all of the content and the workshops that we delivered to our sporting clubs, which was all evidence-based and aligned with our national frameworks on trying to prevent and end family violence. We've been talking about this issue in Australia for a long time now. Awareness is one thing, but action is another. And so a lot of the work that I do is really focused on trying to get the action as an outcome rather than just awareness for awareness's sake.
We will be having some kind of tough conversations tonight, so I hope you're all feeling okay to lean into some of those and taking a bit of a deep dive into what drives family violence, what causes it at a broader social level, and as individuals, what each of us can do about it.
If we're wanting to end family violence, we really need to be thinking about the ways that we're relating with each other on a day-to-day basis, because those are the things that create the foundation for all the higher levels of violence to occur across the community. And that's really that walking the talk. While high-level policies and big events are really important, it's everyday people doing everyday small actions that create the foundation of change that we're really looking for, which is largely what this project has been focused on.
I wanted to kind of kick off on what does sport have to do with domestic violence. Sport's such an integral part of general broad Australian life. I've got a stat here that 87% of Australian adults have or do play some form of sport. So that's a huge percentage of our population. We spend such a large part of our lives connected in sporting clubs. You'll have your own networks and friends and groups of family and people that you spend time with, but then you'll have your kind of community in your sporting club. And so how we relate and how we connect and communicate with each other in our sporting clubs kind of is reflective of how we relate and work in the broader society. They can kind of almost be microcosms, if you will. So what's deemed acceptable or okay in a sporting setting and in a sporting club, that permeates. Being able to think about what are the connections to what's happening in my community to these bigger issues is really important, and that's why sport's a really important setting for us to be having these conversations and why this project is so powerful.
I think that sporting clubs in the community give people a place to gather, and I think sport brings people together in a way that they can focus not only on the sport but on each other. And I think all communities, whether it be sporting or any other community, gives you probably like a set of community standards, and it helps you govern yourself and your behaviours by.
As a sort of community sport, we have such influence on not just our club but also people outside of the community. So when they see that clubs are really getting behind this thing, it might trigger someone to say, oh yep, I'm going to jump on board and I'm going to look at doing something similar, rather than, you know, just staying in their own lane. So I think we're sort of not just speaking to our club, but we're speaking to people in the community as well.
So when I think about the types of change that is required to end family violence, one of the key things we need to do is think about the ways that gender inequality is impacting and working within our sporting clubs, our communities, our workplaces. And when people are able to understand that, that's when they're able to start looking at some of the more tangible things they can do on a day-to-day basis.
Anyone have any idea what causes family violence? No matter what room I go to, training room around the country, everyone's kind of reflections or thoughts are the same. We think that it's mental health, stress, drug and alcohol use, maybe growing up in an abusive home, so a history of violence or a history of trauma. The astounding answer that comes out from all of the research around this is a culture of gender inequality. That is the key driver and cause of family violence in Australia.
The number of domestic violence cases there are on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, it opened my eyes to how big the problem is.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that changed for me was just how many different forms of it there is. I think when people sort of hear about domestic violence, they sort of straight away takes their mind to the physical, but there's so many different aspects to domestic violence and family violence.
That workshop really just dug into the nitty-gritty and showed us things that we probably didn't want to see or recognise that is something that we should be recognising and looking at.
So what I wanted to talk about is, where do we make change? I've got this handout for you, it's double-sided, bit of a primitive cartoon. This is called a hierarchy of violence, and it's how violence operates in our society. At the foundation of all of this is essentially sexist jokes and objectification. And this is what I was talking about earlier around our everyday ways that we communicate with one another. If we're communicating in ways that support this stuff, then we're actually inadvertently supporting that one woman a week murdered by a current or former partner.
To understand that some of the phrases or different things that we might say, even just in a joking term, may be considered as domestic violence, it started to make me look at my own behaviours and what kind of influence I have over the younger minds in the club, and more closely monitor what I do within the club.
I think the workshop has really showed me things that I probably may have said that probably weren't right, that I thought it was a joke. I can bring that into my everyday life at work, you know what I mean? I work with young kids, and that's where we really need to start pushing this and making sure that they understand that domestic violence is wrong and that it's not something that we tolerate anymore.
Some of the young people that have attended, they've really done a lot of self-reflecting on kind of what they kind of do and what they've done, but also I guess the way that others are communicating within the club, and really trying to role model the behaviours that we really want to see.
That's a nice opportunity for us to talk about what I call being a bystander. So in this dynamic, you hear someone make a sexist joke, or you hear someone excuse or minimise violence, you're a bystander. And I guess it's up to you. Are you going to do something in that moment? Are you going to have a conversation with that person and maybe challenge it? Or you're just going to walk past it? It's not about pointing fingers, it's around going, how can we do better? How can we share this around? Because we know this stuff impacts the broader culture.
I've definitely noticed some shifts around the club as a whole, things that we might brush off as a bit of a joke or something they go, hey, no, like we know we're better than that, and as a club we're better than that.
One of the great things about Australian culture is that we generally deal with things with humour, and people started to then jokingly correct people's behaviours, and I think that's a great way to do it because it broke down the barrier. It wasn't directly attacking the person, but it was saying, hey, that probably wasn't suited to what we've been trying to teach in this DV project. I saw that shift almost immediately after the workshops.
So what I'd really be hoping that participants leave from these workshops with is a real deep understanding of the everydayness of the change we're trying to create, how they relate to their friends, how they relate to their partners, how they relate to women in their organisation, in their workplaces. All of these sorts of things has impact, and they can make change.
One of the key takeaways I took was that everybody has a say, or should be saying something, stepping in when those conversations are happening, and the sexist remarks and the inappropriate language, and standing up for that and saying no to that is very important.
Maybe it's going to become easier for us to stand up if there is something said in the locker room that's not on. Well, I can stand up and think, all right, I've got 20 other blokes who would have my back on this and would, back me up and go talk to this person. I think that's really important.
In the workshops we had some beautiful reflections being shared and some great insights. So that's a really great starting place. But I think on top of that, we're looking to figure out ways that we're able to do ongoing work with the sporting club, so we're going to be able to get more long-term impact and change.
I just think there's an amazing opportunity for the community to embrace something like this and become involved in a really serious issue that we need to talk about more, and sporting clubs are the perfect way to do that.
So my message to other clubs is get involved. It'll be a really positive impact for your members of your club, your culture at your club, for your local community.
I think it'll benefit not only the club and the programs, it'll give a voice to everybody.
I think that gender equality, domestic violence and a number of other issues can be solved as a group much better than as an individual, and I think the club and the project coming together sort of permits that as a solution.
I think it definitely build your club up as a whole and bring that camaraderie that you'd want to see, and I think it definitely develops your players, your supporters and just your overall community within the club.
At a community level, we're doing this because we want to end family violence. We're wanting that ripple effect. This is long-term work, but we keep chipping away because that hope of those numbers reducing, of individuals not having to be fearful for their lives and their well-being is what we're all here for.